When Dean Martin died on Christmas Day 1995, the world lost the velvet-voiced crooner and cool-as-ice comic who made ease look effortless. But behind the tux, the wink, and the glass in his hand was a very different man. One who quietly engineered a fortune with such care and long-range planning that, when the full picture finally emerged, it left his family in tears. People never really knew the real Dean, recalled a long-time business associate of more than 3 decades. He acted like success just landed in his lap. In truth, he was building a financial machine with discipline and foresight. Tonight, we open the vault on the empire Dean assembled over 6 decades. Assets intentionally kept out of sight and structured to protect his family far beyond his lifetime. What shocks insiders isn't only the size of the estate, now believed to far exceed early estimates of 30 to 40 million, but the brilliant strategy beneath it. While Rat Pack friends like Frank Sinatra and Sammy Davis Jr. lived bigger and riskier, Dean invested differently, calmly, conservatively, and with unusual patience. Before we tally the numbers, let's meet the man who planned it all. Born Dino Paul Crocetti in Steubenville, Ohio, Dean was shaped by the grit of the Depression and the realities of a working-class immigrant home. He watched his parents grind for every dollar, and it imprinted a simple rule: build security that lasts. Privately, Dean tracked every check, studied opportunities, and spent well below his means. He wasn't a spender, said his accountant. The Beverly Hills home? Comfortable, not ostentatious. The cars? Kept for years. Clothes? Quality? Never flashy. The image of the perpetual party boy was show business. The man signing the contracts was all business. And those contracts. That's where Dean's genius showed. In the 1960s, while most stars chased fat salaries, he bargained for ownership and royalty structures, trading upfront cash for a bigger, longer tail. A veteran entertainment attorney put it simply: he took less today to own tomorrow. Even the ever-present drink, often apple juice. The audience expected a vibe, a production staffer said. He delivered it on stage, then handled business stone-cold sober. The carefree Dean was a professional character. The real Dean was a strategist. Dean's most important financial bet unfolded in Las Vegas in the 1960s, and it turned the standard deal on its head. While other headliners demanded huge guaranteed fees, Dean accepted smaller guarantees in return for something far more valuable: tiny ownership slices of the casinos themselves. At the Sands, people thought he got taken, remembered a casino executive. He knew exactly what he was doing. As Vegas evolved from desert novelty to global capital of entertainment, those fractional stakes multiplied in value, especially during the casino consolidations of the 1980s and 1990s. Each time ownership changed hands, buyout clauses kicked in, sometimes at eye-popping valuations. By the time he passed, Dean held equity positions in 6 major Las Vegas properties, said a financial advisor to the estate. One stake first valued around $150,000. In the 1960s, ultimately bought out for more than $12 million in the 1990s, when his children finally saw the full ledger of Vegas holdings and how deliberately he'd arranged those buyouts. The realization landed hard. Deanna broke down, a family friend said. She saw he'd been playing a much longer game than anyone realized. Dean's films and records made him famous, but his richest vein may be his television empire. The Dean Martin Show, 9 seasons, 1965 to 1974, and the Dean Martin Celebrity Roast specials. The secret was structure. Instead of being a network employee, Dean operated through his own company, Claude Productions, and kept ownership of the shows. In an era when TV was considered disposable, this looked risky. But as cable exploded in the 1980s, DVD arrived, and streaming took off, Dean's library became evergreen. Every new license, broadcast, home video, digital routes revenue primarily to the estate. He built a perpetual motion machine, said a distribution executive. Most stars from that era only see small residuals. Dean flipped the model. When the family saw forward projections for TV rights alone, they realized what it meant. Multi-generational income, still growing more than 5 decades after first air. From That's Amore to Everybody Loves Somebody, Dean's recordings never faded. But the true brilliance lies in how he assembled rights in the 1960s. Not only performer royalties, but publishing positions, master interests, even specific arrangements. Dean would walk away from lucrative offers if the rights were wrong, said a former Capitol Records executive. Frank Sinatra once joked he was crazy to squabble over reversion terms. Dean shrugged. Maybe I am, but my kids won't think so. In the streaming era, classic catalogs have exploded in value. A music analyst estimates Dean's holdings have appreciated by hundreds of %. His son Richie was told the portfolio had risen over 800% since Dean's passing. Holiday recordings, film placements, and major ad syncs keep the meter running. Its patient architecture paying off, exactly as he intended. While stars collected trophy mansions in Beverly Hills and Bel Air, Dean quietly bought where the growth would be: Malibu, Palm Springs, Aspen, and strategically, Las Vegas land outside the Strip. In the 1960s, he picked up parcels for modest sums that today are worth fortunes. He thought like an investor, not a celebrity, a real estate advisor noted. Alongside appreciation plays, Dean held income properties, apartments, commercial spaces, restaurant and retail sites, so cash flow never depended solely on show business. The family later found handwritten notes for each acquisition, why he bought it, the long view, and who in the family might steward it best. It wasn't just money. It was a map. Beyond entertainment and property, Dean built a conservative long-term stock portfolio when Hollywood was chasing fads. A financial advisor from the 1970s and 1980s remembered, he favored strong brands and simple businesses, consumer products, food and beverage, hospitality. Then he held for decades. Positions in companies like McDonald's, Coca-Cola, and Disney were left to compound, often for 30-plus years. Advisors sometimes urged him to lock gains or diversify. Dean's reply rarely changed. If it was worth buying, it's worth keeping. He even embedded those principles into family structures, creating investment partnerships with guidelines that taught his philosophy. Years later, an analysis comparing his patient strategy with active managers brought his daughter Gail to tears. His quiet method had outperformed the pros over 30-plus years. Dean also protected his IP decades before celebrity branding became an industry. He trademarked his name and likeness, guarded signature phrases and performance style, and created licensing frameworks for recurring personas, including the famous Tipsy character. Back in the 1970s, there wasn't an obvious market for such rights. But as digital platforms, global merchandising, apps, and AI-enhanced media emerged, the groundwork Dean laid allowed the estate to participate, ethically and profitably. A digital media executive put it this way: he anticipated the need to control and license image and voice long before technology caught up. Notes found from the 1970s moved the family most. Musings about how audiences might experience his performances 50 years later. The man the public thought lived purely in the moment was planning for decades he'd never see. The final revelation wasn't a dollar figure. It was the design. Dean's estate plan wasn't a cold spreadsheet. It was a portrait of his family, each person considered with care. He set up specialized funds for entrepreneurs, creative resources for the artists, and safety nets for those who might need more support. Structure without suffocation. Rather than handing everything to outside trustees, he established a family council, pairing professional guidance with real participation. And then came the letters, personal notes delivered at milestones. One granddaughter opened hers on her 30th birthday and wept. Somehow, he had anticipated the very challenges she was facing. Dean used to say, "In my business, everybody's watching, but very few are really seeing," a close friend remembered. Turns out, he was seeing his family clearer than anyone knew. Behind the lounge lizard smile and the low-key charm was a builder, a man who valued ownership over quick paydays, patience over flash, and family over headlines. From the fractional casino stakes that turned into $12 million buyouts, to television rights routed through Claude Productions since 1965, to a catalog up more than 800%, To land bought in the 1960s now worth tens of millions, Dean Martin didn't just leave money. He left a blueprint. The world watched the entertainer. His family now sees the architect. And that's why, when the binders finally opened and the truth of his planning came into focus, the tears came, not from shock alone, but from gratitude. Dean Martin made it all look easy. The real genius, he made it last.